My name's Matthew, I'm 34, and for most of my life, I was the good son, the dependable one, the problem solver. I remembered birthdays, fixed broken pipes, covered surprise bills, drove across state lines in the middle of the night because my brother's car broke down again. I didn't mind it, not really. I figured that's just what families did. My parents raised me to believe loyalty meant sacrifice, and I took that lesson to heart, even when it felt like I was the only one learning it. It wasn't always this way. We used to be close, or at least, I thought we were. But over time, things changed in subtle, sour ways. It started with little jokes at my expense during family dinners. "Matthew's married to his work," my dad would chuckle. "Guess that's why we don't have grandkids yet." Or my mom sighing when I'd miss Sunday brunch, even though I had a presentation due Monday morning. "Your brother makes time," she'd say, as if being a barista with 3 roommates and no rent gave him the same obligations I had. I brushed it off for years, letting it slide with a tight smile and some self-deprecating remark. It's easier to laugh along than to confront the sting, but the weight of it started to show. I'd fly them out for vacations, book nice hotels, pay restaurant tabs, cover my brother's overdraft fees. Just this once, which turned into every month like clockwork. And still, I felt like an outsider in my own family. My input wasn't taken seriously in group chats. My name was left off the Christmas dinner place cards, every one hand-lettered by my mother. I didn't even get a stocking anymore. And yet, I kept showing up. Birthdays, holidays, house repairs, financial crises. I was always there, until I wasn't. It started unraveling slowly. A few months ago, I received an email from the family accountant. Nothing out of the ordinary, just quarterly trust updates. It was a trust my grandfather set up decades ago, long before any of us were born. The trust was substantial, but more than that, it was symbolic. An anchor for the family. I was one of 2 designated co-trustees, the other being my Uncle Robert, who treated the whole thing like a nuisance. "Just sign the damn thing, Matthew," he'd say whenever I asked for details. "You're the numbers guy." And I was. Finance had been my career since I graduated, and managing wealth was second nature to me. I never asked for a bigger slice, never played games with it. I just kept the machine running because someone had to. That email, though, had a clause I'd never noticed. One I knew no one else in the family had read either. It gave me final say over discretionary distributions. If certain thresholds weren't met by the other trustee, I filed it away in the back of my mind, unsure if I'd ever need it. I didn't want power. I wanted peace. And then came the message. It was a Thursday afternoon, one of those bland days, where nothing goes wrong, but nothing feels right either. I was wrapping up a client call when my phone buzzed. A group text from my mom. "We've talked it over, and we think we need space. Please don't reach out anymore." No explanation, no follow-up, just that. And beneath it, my Uncle Robert reacted with a thumbs up. My brother, of course, said nothing. I stared at the screen for a solid minute, wondering if it was a mistake, a poorly worded joke, a misfire. But the longer I stared, the more I realized something colder, something premeditated, was happening. And that's when I remembered the voice message from my brother a week prior. Half drunk, laughing. "Mom says you're getting weird about the money. That you're making things complicated. You know, this whole family would run smoother if you just stopped trying to control everything." It all clicked. The sudden coldness at the last family dinner. My name missing from the joint birthday invite for my nephew. My uncle handling paperwork behind my back. They'd had this planned. They thought I'd quietly bow out and leave everything to them, like always. I read the message 3 times, fingers hovering over the keyboard. I could have begged for clarification, written a paragraph about all I'd done, all the ways I'd supported them. But I didn't. I typed one sentence. "Of course, I'll cancel my direct deposits first thing." I didn't wait for a reply. That night, I logged into every account tied to the family trust. Every joint investment, every shared emergency fund I'd helped set up. I wasn't being malicious. I was being precise. When I saw Uncle Robert had signed off on a $15,000 vacation advance 2 days prior, I knew I wasn't overreacting. The paper trail was sloppy. Expenses masked as property upkeep had gone to a casino in Reno. My brother had filed a $6,700 reimbursement for medical travel. A trip I knew was to Coachella. By midnight, I'd frozen the trust under the discretionary authority clause, flagged it for audit, emptied the vacation fund into a holding account, pending review, and triggered an alert halting all external transfers above $1,000. Lastly, I updated the tax profile. With the protections I'd removed, the trust was now subject to the standard estate tax bracket, something they'd worked hard to avoid with my help. That buffer was gone. At 4:02 a.m., my phone started buzzing. 17 calls from my brother, 6 from my mom, 1 from Uncle Robert. No voicemails, just aggressive, panic-driven calls demanding answers. I didn't pick up. I didn't even open their messages. I sent one reply to the group chat, typed cleanly, no emojis, no period. Wishing you all the distance you asked for. That was it. I locked my phone, tossed it on the nightstand, and slept better than I had in months. What they didn't know, what they still don't know, is what I took with me. The next morning, I didn't check my phone. I went for a run instead, something I hadn't done in weeks. There was a chill in the air, the kind that bites your lungs and makes every breath feel new. I ran until my legs burned, my mind empty, my body alive in a way it hadn't felt since before all this. I didn't think about the fallout, not yet. Not until I got home and found 24 unread messages waiting. The tone had shifted overnight. Early ones from my brother were furious. What did you do? You can't just mess with the trust. Then my mom, you're being dramatic, Matthew. We just needed space. Not whatever this is. Uncle Robert, if this is your way of throwing a tantrum, you've gone too far. You'll hear from our lawyer. But the later ones were different. Can we just talk? You're blowing this out of proportion. We didn't mean to hurt you. And finally, from my dad, who hadn't said a word until then. Please don't do anything you'll regret. I read that one twice, laughed, then deleted it. They didn't understand, never understood, that I didn't do this out of spite or pettiness. I made a decision, a clean break, one they asked for, whether they realized it or not. Let me back up, because I promised I'd tell you what I took. It started 2 years ago, after my grandfather passed away. He was a quiet man, stern but kind in his own way. Never one for fanfare, but sharp until the end. He pulled me aside after the funeral, eyes watery but focused, and handed me a letter, not a legal document, just a handwritten note. In his scrawled, no-nonsense penmanship. You're the only one I trust to protect the family from itself. That was all it said, no signature, no explanation. That letter stayed with me, tucked in the back of my safe, behind old bonds and property deeds. I hadn't thought much of it at the time. I figured he meant the trust, taxes, or accounts I managed. But now, years later, I understood. He saw them clearly when I didn't. What I took wasn't just money, it was leverage, insurance, protection. Over the years, while I drafted documents, filed reports, and kept everything afloat, I noticed discrepancies. A missing signature here, a double charge there, accidental transfers. My uncle had gotten sloppy, and my brother never respected the value of a dollar that wasn't his. So, I documented everything, quietly, thoroughly. I had copies of every expense report, screen-recorded every bank transfer they made under my name, kept a spreadsheet of every loan they never paid back. I even had emails where my mother thanked me for covering property taxes. They told the family they'd paid. But the real prize? The ownership documents for the lake house. That house was always presented as the family's shared vacation home. That's what everyone said. What no one realized was that after Grandpa passed, I bought out the remaining mortgage with my own funds. Quietly, legally, I never changed the name on the mailbox. Never mentioned the title transfer. I handled the payments while everyone used it for summer getaways and holiday photos. My brother even proposed to his fiancée there. And it's mine, fully paid off, legally filed. The deed resting in my office drawer, notarized and untouched. They thought the trust owned it. They were wrong. So, when I froze the family's accounts, yes, the trust was paralyzed, the vacation fund gone, the estate protections reversed. But the lake house? That was never theirs to begin with. They'd built memories on borrowed time. Now it's locked, empty, off limits. I changed the passcode to the front gate, scheduled security upgrades, and listed it as an exclusive rental on a high-end platform. $3,000 a night, booked solid for the next 5 months. I didn't do it for money. I did it because my grandfather trusted me to protect the family from itself. That night, my mom called. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail, her voice tight, tearful, but controlled. Matthew, we didn't mean what we said. Things have been tense. We miss you. Your brother's struggling, you know that. Your uncle's under pressure. We shouldn't have pushed you out. Please call us. Let's fix this. I listened once, then deleted it. Here's the truth they still haven't faced. This wasn't about one message or one account. It was years of being the backup plan, the safety net, the reliable disappointment they knew would always catch the fall. Pay the debt, show up uninvited but needed. They cut the cord. I made sure they couldn't grab it again. When they started to fall. And now, they're starting to fall. What happens next? They haven't even noticed the other thing I took with me. But they will. They always do. 2 days later, the group chat exploded again, this time with panic. It started with a message from my cousin Rachel, one of the few family members I actually liked. She rarely got involved in drama, showing up to gatherings out of obligation more than enthusiasm. "Hey, I don't know what's going on," she wrote, "but Aunt Susan's flipping out. Something about the foundation paperwork. She said you locked her out of the documents folder." I hadn't expected that to come to light so soon. The foundation wasn't a charity in the traditional sense. It was a tax shelter, legal but very gray. Something my uncle set up a decade ago to manage family giving. I'd helped set up the infrastructure and cloud storage back then, when they didn't know the difference between a password and a PDF. The documents folder? I had full admin access, always did. I never thought I'd need to use it, but after their message, I revoked every user permission and put it behind encryption. Legally, I didn't have the right to take anything, but they didn't have the right to use my name and ID on the filings either. I made sure of that. I had screenshots, metadata, IP logs, everything. So, when my aunt realized she couldn't access the financial records, the foundation account statements, or the expense tracking spreadsheets they needed for their quarterly report, she must have lost it. I pictured her pacing her kitchen in those awful leopard print slippers, screeching into her fourth glass of wine, flinging her phone at my uncle, yelling, "What did Matthew do now?" And just like that, the cracks turned into a collapse. That night, I got an email from a law firm I'd never heard of. Some shiny boutique practice in Chicago trying to sound scarier than they were. Subject line, Urgent Family Trust Access Inquiry. I didn't open it, just forwarded it to my lawyer with a quick message. "This is probably the first of many. Loop me in if anything serious comes through." The next day, my brother showed up at my condo. I wasn't home. I'd anticipated something like this. The building has a concierge and security cameras. He wasn't subtle about his arrival either. The desk called me, concerned. He'd slammed his hand on the counter, demanded to be let up, shouting about family emergencies and stolen property. I watched the footage later. There he was in a crumpled hoodie, looking more like a college dropout than a 32-year-old father of two, red-faced, fidgeting, pacing the lobby, like a restless teenager waiting for someone to cave. He waited 30 minutes, then left, no call, no message. Just an Instagram story I wasn't supposed to see. A photo of our grandfather's urn on the mantle at our parents' house. Captioned, "Some people forgot where they came from." That photo hit me in the gut. My grandfather had meant everything to me. The only one in that house who ever listened? Who taught me to do the hard thing even when it cost you? Now they were dragging his memory into this mess. I stared at the photo for a long time, then pulled out his letter. The one tucked in my safe, folded, slightly yellowed, ink fading. I read it again, then flipped it over, something I hadn't noticed before. Scrawled faintly in the corner were 5 numbers. Like a bank account or a combination, a code. I don't know how I'd missed it. I'd looked at that paper 100 times. I scanned the number into my files, then went back to the stack of folders. Trust documents, deeds, business accounts my uncle opened without telling anyone. There it was, in an old ledger from 15 years ago. A hidden account, untouched, an emergency reserve. No details, no balance, no sign of who had access until now. That's what I took, or rather, what I was given. Not just leverage, not just proof, not just a house or a trust, but a legacy my grandfather had stashed away, hidden from the vultures who'd have drained it dry. Not a fortune, but enough to change everything. I wasn't sure what I'd do with it yet. Not until I received one more message from my mother, 6 words. "We didn't raise you like this." I didn't reply, not yet. But I knew what I'd do next, and they weren't ready, not even close. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at that message. It wasn't an apology, not a plea, but a judgment. A subtle attempt to remind me of my role, the mold I was supposed to fit. The good son, the quiet one, the provider, the forgiver. That sentence wasn't about guilt, it was about control. That was the moment I knew there was no going back. Not after they'd turned my loyalty into expectation, my generosity into obligation, my silence into permission. The next morning, I called my lawyer, Jessica. A sharp, unflinching woman I'd met through a mutual client. With a gift for anticipating people's moves and a blunt honesty I appreciated. I laid out everything, what I had access to, what they'd done. The backup documents, shady deductions, the trust clause they never read. When I told her about the hidden account my grandfather left, she went silent, then said, "You have more power than you realize. But if you do this, Matthew, you need to be ready to lose them, all of them." "I already have," I said. She didn't ask more questions. Within a week, everything was in motion. First, I initiated a full audit of the trust. Jessica helped me file a petition to remove Uncle Robert as co-trustee, citing financial misconduct, unauthorized spending, and failure to notify me of large discretionary withdrawals. Attached were over 100 pages of documentation. Timestamps, emails, flagged expenses, recorded conversations. I spared no detail. Then we notified the Family Foundation's board. Mostly names on paper, but the kind who cared about reputation. We showed evidence of misappropriated funds, backdated receipts, personal trips listed as charity consulting. The fallout was immediate. Uncle Robert was forced to resign from the board within 48 hours. To avoid a full-blown investigation. By the end of the week, my brother was suspended. From the startup incubator my parents had funded for him with trust money. They had no choice, he wasn't a beneficiary. And his salary had been funneled through a shell company. Registered under my uncle's name. With the trust frozen and its assets under review, everything he touched was now radioactive. The lake house? I didn't just keep it, I sold it. I contacted a private buyer wanting a second home for retirement, who didn't blink at the $2.1 million asking price. The transaction closed in 6 days. The house, where they held anniversaries, birthdays, drunken 4th of July barbecues, was gone. No warning, no goodbye, just a new owner with new keys. I didn't pocket the money, that wasn't the point. I used it to establish a real foundation, transparent, governed, purposeful. I named it the Carter Initiative, after my grandfather, not the family name. It focused on financial literacy for underprivileged youth. Something he'd always talked about but never pursued. I put Jessica on the board, recruited friends from the financial sector. People with integrity. It was everything the old foundation pretended to be. Then I sent out the letter, not an email, but printed, signed, mailed. To every immediate family member, my parents, my brother, Uncle Robert, Aunt Susan, even Rachel. The envelope was thick, formal, impossible to ignore. It read, "Dear family, this letter serves as formal notice that I am fully withdrawing from all shared financial obligations, including but not limited to the family trust, foundation operations, discretionary accounts, estate planning, and vacation properties. As of today, I am no longer responsible for any administrative, fiduciary, or advisory role. All ongoing matters have been handed to legal counsel, and appropriate authorities have been notified of irregularities where applicable. I have taken steps to protect my name, assets, and professional standing. This is not revenge, it's a boundary. You asked for distance. Now you have it. Matthew." There was silence, no calls, no texts, not at first. Until my father showed up. I heard the knock before I saw him, slow, deliberate. Not like the frantic banging from my brother days earlier. I opened the door, and there he stood. Dressed in a blazer like he was coming from church or court. Face pale, eyes sunken, the look of a man who'd lost something he couldn't buy back. "Matthew," he said, his voice cracking like it hadn't in years. I didn't move, didn't invite him in. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a photo. An old one, me and Grandpa sitting on the dock behind the lake house, legs dangling over the water. I was maybe 10, holding a fishing rod, grinning with a gap in my teeth. Grandpa was looking at me, not the camera. "I found this in his old drawer," my dad said, his hand trembling slightly. "I thought you should have it." I took the photo, looked at it. "Why now?" I asked. He looked down, unable to meet my eyes. "Because you were right," he whispered, "about all of it. We used you, took from you, never even said thank you. And when you finally set a boundary, we acted like you betrayed us. But you didn't. We betrayed you." I let the silence settle between us. "You're not here for the trust?" I asked, calm but sharp. "No," he said quickly. "I just don't want to lose my son." It was the first honest thing he'd said in years. But it wasn't enough. "I'm not angry anymore," I said, "but I'm not coming back either." His face twisted, not in anger, but in quiet grief. The kind that comes when a door finally closes. "I understand," he said. And he did. He turned to leave. Just before he reached the elevator, I called out, "Dad." He looked back. "Grandpa left me something, a letter. He told me to protect the family from itself." He nodded. "And you did." Then he left. That was the end? No big confrontation, no dramatic showdown, just quiet accountability. In the weeks that followed, the audit concluded. The trust was dissolved. My uncle was fined, quietly but heavily. My brother moved to a smaller apartment and stopped tagging me in Instagram rants. My mother never called again, and I stopped waiting for her to. Instead, I focused on the Carter Initiative. I gave talks, mentored students, taught kids to spot traps in contracts, read financial statements, hold power responsibly. Sometimes, I think about the lake house, the dock, the boy with the missing tooth and the man who saw the truth before I did. But I never regret walking away. Because sometimes the only way to save yourself is to let the family fall apart. And when they did, I didn't just survive, I finally lived.